We're live. Let's get started. Audio on. Make to start cloud recording. Your account is being used on available devices. Record to this computer. Okay, recording.
My boy Z's in there.
All right, big smiles. Audio on. Cover off. Let's do it.
Thanks, bro. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Podcasting 101 webinar, where I'm going to break down everything from start to finish on how to actually get your podcast started. My name is Nick. A little bit about myself. I've been working with Jazz and Laura for about 3 years. I have produced well over 100 episodes of podcasts for different real estate agents across the city here. And I am currently their social media strategist for From the Ground Up Academy, for Jazz and for Laura as well. So I'm excited to show you guys A to Z on how to get started. So today we're going to kind of break it down into different portions. We're going to go over the technical aspect from the shooting equipment that you'll need, as well as the technical aspect of really quickly just going down on what you need from an editing and distribution perspective as well. So a little bit about the distribution side really quickly. A lot of people have a lot of confusion around how to actually get podcasts onto the different platforms, and we'll break that down today for you guys as well. So yeah, I'm really excited to get started. So let's just jump right into the gear. So I'm gonna get up and we're gonna move over here. So you can see on the table here, I have a plethora of equipment. And we're gonna kind of break down a couple different options for you guys as well in terms of pricing and budget. So obviously for a podcast, audio is probably gonna be one of the most crucial parts of the entire process, because if someone can't hear you clearly, they're not sticking around for the 45-minute conversation. That's just end all be all of that conversation. So you can see there's a big mic and a big square thing, and I'll break down what both of those are for you guys. So this is the Zoom LiveTrack L8. It's essentially a soundboard where you're going to record all of the audio coming in for your podcast. Now this soundboard works with what we call XLR microphones. XLR microphones are kind of like the industry standard for podcasting and production, and gives you some of the best quality for audio. So we have the Shure mic here. These kind of range anywhere from around $400 to $500 depending on what model you get. The one we have here is around $400. Amazing audio quality. These mics perform fantastic. Obviously though, it's a bit of a steep price point, because generally speaking, when you're doing a podcast, you're at least with one person, so you need 2 microphones. So all in, you're looking at $800 to $1,000 on just the microphones. The LiveTrack will run you probably around $500, give or take. So all in, just on audio right there, you're looking at $1,500 for the professional high-end quality. With that being said, you don't have to go with that. It is the best in terms of quality, but there is a much more economical version you can kind of go with. And so those are going to be the Rode mics, the Rode Wireless Go 2. These are a great option to get started with. All in, you're looking at $400 plus tax. Sometimes you can find them on sale for even like $350, $330. And these are great mics. You get one receiver. So the receiver is what actually attaches to the camera that you're shooting off of. And you get 2 microphones. So this would be a good place to start if you're looking to obviously have a budget-friendly entry, and it still allows you to kind of have that one-on-one conversation with your guests. So there is a bit of a drop in quality though from audio. Like you will see a difference. Like you get more depth out of the sound with the Shure mic versus the Rhodes. But obviously, like I said, if budget and price are an important aspect of what you're doing, the Rodes are going to be a better option. One way to kind of step up the quality with the Rodes is going to be with these little lavs here. So let me just take it out of the bag and show you.
Camera.
So you can never take a cord out of a bag and it be perfect. So really simple. This is a lav mic. What you're going to do is you're going to clip it onto your shirt, run it down your shirt, and then clip the actual little Rode mic thing here to your belt. It does improve the audio quality a little bit just because it's going to be a little more focused to you. These run you about $100 each. You can find cheaper ones, but you get what you pay for. So the cheaper ones, yeah, they're cheaper, but you might see a drop in quality, whether it's on the manufacturing side or just on the overall audio quality of it. So it's always good to kind of stick with the brand names in this case with audio, just because it can get a little dicey with some of the other brands. So now that we have audio, oh, sorry, I forgot one more thing. This is an XLR cable. So it has these 3 prongs in it. Which camera are we on? This one. So we got 3 prongs, and that goes into the actual microphone, and then that other side would head into your soundboard. So with that being said too, these are wireless, whereas the XLRs aren't. So you get a little more freedom of movement with the Rode mics in terms of like where you're shooting, depending on how it's set up. You have more flexibility here. Whereas like, for example, with these, if you don't buy a long enough cable, you literally can't reach the microphone to the board, and that might add complications to your shoot. So yeah, that's audio. Pretty straightforward. Like I said, there's just 2 options. We got the high-end professional, and then we got sort of like the mid-range consumer professional level product. So those are the 2. And then as well, just as a quick reference point, you're going to need headphones. Now, both you and the guest don't need to wear headphones. In an ideal situation, you have a third person operating your cameras, and in that case, they'd be wearing headphones just to monitor the audio, because the worst thing you'd want to do is get through an entire conversation with somebody for 45 minutes, and it sounds like crap. So kind of keep that in mind. With the soundboard as well, you'll definitely need to monitor, because these boards are a little more sensitive in terms of their pickup and stuff like that. So it's a no-brainer. You definitely need headphones. Kind of seems like a small thing, but it's actually a huge part of the production. Because like I said, if the audio is bad, no one's listening to your podcast. Next up is cameras. Now don't freak out, guys. Like, you don't have to spend $5,000. I know we see on YouTube and Instagram all these creators talking about all these different cameras, and some of them are like $5,000, and you don't even get a lens and this, that, and the other. Well, you don't have to break the bank on a camera. One of my personal favorites for actually entry-level podcasting is going to be the Sony ZV-1. It's a great little camera. It is super lightweight, has a nice zoom lens built into it, so you don't have to buy a camera and a lens. You just buy this and you're good to go. This shoots at 1080p, it shoots at 4K, and it has an unlimited shooting time. So if you set it up on a tripod and you go to talk for an hour in front of the camera, this will continuously shoot. Other cameras at this price point don't necessarily have that feature, which can be a little awkward if you're shooting the podcast yourself and you're the host, just because you're gonna have to literally get up, stop the podcast, and then walk over to the camera, restart the recording, and then walk back to your seat and then restart the conversation. Might get a little awkward if especially if you're starting out in the podcasting world, might throw you off. So always recommend trying to find a camera that's at a good budget and has unlimited shooting for your podcast. So the Sony ZV-1 is great for that. And then on top of that, as a bonus, you can use this for other things in social media. Like, it's not just going to be your dedicated podcast camera. You can use it for your reels. You can use it for any kind of educational content that you put out. So it's not a one-time purchase for the podcast. This is going to be a great tool for all your other social media content as well. So kind of look at it from that perspective for all the gear too. Obviously, outside of like the Shure mics, you can still use them for your social media content, but that's again adding another layer of complexity to it. So this camera will do you wonders in terms of getting started. You need a tripod. You're not gonna have someone hold the camera for 45 minutes to an hour, because by the time that hour is up, that camera is going to be shaky and all over the place. So the tripod is, again, non-negotiable. You have to get a tripod with your camera as well. It's super simple, Nothing crazy about these. It's a tripod and it holds your camera still. But again, non-negotiable. You need to buy one of these. And these can range anywhere from, call it $40 on Amazon all the way up to 400. But again, you don't need to go that far. The $40 option that I have in front of me is going to do you wonders. The next thing is lighting. Not everywhere you're going to shoot is going to be the ideal place for lighting, especially if you're trying to save time and you're shooting it in your office or wherever that may be. Most offices have, overhead fluorescent bulbs. They create weird shadows on people's faces and it doesn't always look good. So again, another really kind of budget-friendly option to get started is these LED panels from Neewer. Super simple. They're battery operated, or you have the option to plug in a wall adapter and run it that way. But this is going to make a big difference on just how it looks, right? So for any of you who are going to be putting it on YouTube, which I recommend you all do, this is going to help with just creating that visually appealing aspect. We covered the sound to make it sound really crispy and nice, but we also want to make sure it looks good too. And then this will allow you to get more out of that video footage. You won't have to kind of make it a grainy video, if that makes sense, because when things are darker when you're shooting, we have to kind of bump up what we call the ISO on a camera. And what that does is it creates that grainy look to it. And then so when you go to zoom in to clip this later on, the quality just won't be there. So the lighting actually allows you just to pull a little more out of the camera as well and just really kind of optimize the way everything looks. So that's pretty much what you need to just get started. Obviously, one last thing that I forgot is going to be SD cards. I don't really need to show you guys. We've all seen a memory card before. I recommend getting anything over 128 gigabytes. Again, you don't want to be worried about running out of storage space while you're in the middle of a shoot, because again, that's just one additional layer that you're adding into the complexity of your shoot that you don't need to be doing. So yeah, that's all the gear. Any questions in the chat or anything like that right now? Cool. So we'll keep it moving. So the gear is pretty straightforward. At the end of the day, these are just the tools that you're going to use to actually create the podcast. So you don't need to overthink it too much. Like I said, these are all budget-friendly options. I really do recommend most of you who are starting out to actually not get the board and the Shure mics. Like I said, it's adding a level of complexity to it. And we make things complex when they're in the beginning. We have a higher chance of failing, because it adds just a level of, I gotta go shoot a podcast, man. We gotta, debug all these problems, and it really just it sours the whole experience. So I would say keep it simple in the beginning. Keep it as simple as possible in the beginning, so that you have no excuses to not keep going. So you've shot your podcast. Now you just have a video file. What do you do? So we're gonna kind of go over a really quick, simple breakdown of like what you would actually need to do to take your podcast from your camera and put it onto either YouTube or Spotify, Apple Podcast, etc. So I'm just gonna go ahead and share my screen here. Perfect. All right, we are in. So I'm just gonna minimize this. Okay, so this is Premiere Pro, and actually let me pull up the Creative Cloud desktop app. So this is the Adobe suite. So this, we've all probably seen, YouTube tutorials and stuff of people talking about Premiere Pro. It's an editing software that gets thrown around quite a bit. It is sort of the industry standard for most people because it works on every computer. If you have a Mac, if you have a PC, it doesn't matter. You can download and use this. There's a couple other options as well in terms of editing software, but I would say this is probably one of the easiest ones to get into because, like I said, it works on all computers. And another really cool thing about it as well is that it's a little more accessible in terms of the amount of tutorials that you have available for you to navigate it. Because you're not gonna be making these Hollywood productions on your first time editing, but at least Premiere Pro has some of the tools to make it a little bit easier and a plethora of online resources to follow along with. So Anyway, back to this. Premiere Pro. Premiere Pro will probably run you around 30 to 40 bucks a month using their subscription model. They don't have an option to buy out the program, so you'll have to just go on a month-to-month basis there, which isn't a big deal. Cost of business is kind of the way I look at it in that sense. How else are you going to get the podcast edited outside of paying someone to do it? So that's kind of the way I look at it. So we're here. Obviously, you'd sign up, you'd put in your credit card information, and get your monthly subscription going. And then from there, you'd download the app. And once you have the app downloaded, it's pretty straightforward. All you're going to do is open it. So I have it open here already. We're just going to go to New Project. And then name it whatever you want to name it. So if your show is the Real Estate Podcast Show, I'm just throwing that out there as a random example. Just put, Real Estate Podcast Show, Episode 1, guest name. That way you know what that file is. So when you need to go back and reference it for clips, or there was something you need to fix, or whatever the case may be, you have that always in front of you. And you're not trying to guess like, oh wait, what is Untitled 1 and Untitled 2? So it's just going to make your life a lot easier. In this case, I don't want to get myself confused about what's on the computer. I'm just going to write podcast test. And that's it. We're going to press enter. Most of these settings are going to be good to go for what you're going to be doing in terms of like the average camera. Now, unfortunately, Adobe products have a history of being a little bit buggy. So have some patience there. If it doesn't load right away, give it some time. Usually it will end up loading, but that's just kind of, again, par for the course. I really don't have an answer or an excuse for that one. It just sucks sometimes. So anyway, let's open it up. I'm gonna go to downloads because that's personally where my video is. Your video will probably be on your SD card, so just go to that in your file explorer. Click on the video. Click on the video, just the one video that you want to pull in, and then import into media. It's just going to immediately pull that into the Premiere Pro app. And then from there, it's going to be in this little project folder in the bottom left corner. Click and drag that onto drop media here to create sequence. Boom, you're there. So from here, you're just going to want to find the beginning of your video. So it looks like mine is right around here. We're just going to drag that over here, pull that to the front of the timeline. All right, so it looks like it's about the right start of my podcast. We're just going to scroll down and then find the end point. Looks like it's right around here. Perfect. So then from there, I'm just going to drag that over. Boom. I've officially just edited the video. Now, very basic editing. We don't need to go too crazy as we're starting, because again, we don't want to add layers of complexity to discourage us. This is a one camera shoot, so I recommend, again, you guys keep it simple, keep it to one camera. Let's not get too crazy in the beginning, because again, the more we add, the harder it gets, and when the harder it gets, the more excuses we tend to have, and when we have a lot of excuses, we tend to not do things. So we don't want to start entering into that. So yeah, we're here, we got it all set up. Obviously, you want to make sure your audio sounds good, and if your audio has any tweaks or anything like that that you want to fix, you're just going to go ahead and go to Audio Clip Mixer, press play, and then from there you can kind of just adjust how loud the audio or how loud your voice is going to be in the video. And yeah, it's pretty straightforward. Once you're happy with what you have here in your timeline, you're obviously going to want to export it. So what we're going to do there is, I use a lot of shortcuts, but in this case, I'm actually going to go and press the proper set of things so you guys can see. So you're going to go to File, Export, and Media. Or alternatively, press Control-M, and that will bring you into the next aspect, which is going to be our exporting. Let me try that one more time. Sorry, it's just being a little finicky. As you guys can see, it happens with this program sometimes. There we go. Export, media, or alternatively press Control-M. I'm just going to press Control-M because it's being a little bit testy right now. There we go. Perfect. So you're going to see this pop out. Our video will populate here, but for now it's actually set to MP3. So let me just really quickly change that to MP4. So MP4 file format is going to be video, and MP3 file format is going to be audio. With the way Premiere Pro works, there's no MP4 option, so you actually, what it's called is H.264, and that's just essentially like the encoding or the package for the video. So just click that H.264, and that's going to produce your MP4 version of the podcast. So from there, it looks good. I'm happy with it. The only thing I probably want to do is change the file name to whatever file name you want to be, whatever episode it is, and then you're going to go ahead and hit export. It's going to do its thing. Obviously, I only have a short 1-minute clip, so it's only going to take a few seconds. A 1-hour podcast, 45-minute podcast might take you 30 minutes, 40 minutes, but it really depends on your computer. So we'll leave that there. And my video was successfully exported. So boom. I would just go to wherever that was put, which I believe is desktop. Just double check that. Sorry guys, 1 second. There we go. And I'm just going to change that to desktop just to make it a little easier to find, and then hit export again just so I can find it. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It's pretty quick. Alrighty. So now I'm going to open up the video just to show you guys, and that should. There we go. Pop that up. We'll hit whatever, and boom. There's my video. Okay, cool. So I have my video there. We need audio, because obviously with a podcast, you'd want to probably put it on podcasting platforms. So let's just really quickly go over that. So same process. You're going to go to File, Export, or Control-M, whatever you guys feel more confident with. For some reason, the clicking doesn't seem to work for me, so I'm just going to go with Control-M. Let's try that one more time. There we go. So for this case, you'd actually want to go down to MP3, and then we're going to go to 256 kilobytes per second high quality. So all that means is that we're going to have a little more audio data in that file so that we just have the best audio quality. We don't want to compress the audio, because when you compress the audio, imagine trying to, you're standing in an open room and you can hear all the sounds versus trying to listen into a tube. That's essentially what compression does to the audio. So we'll hit high quality, boom. Let's just make sure I'm happy with my destination, perfect, and then we hit export. So now we have our audio and our video aspects to upload into the different platforms. So I'm going to pop over back into this. Just going to hit Control Tab. Sorry, 1 second here, guys. My zoom overlay doesn't really let me see where the buttons are. There we go. Okay, now I can see everything. There we go. Perfect. Okay. So first thing we'll do is YouTube. Obviously, you need to go ahead and create a YouTube channel if you already haven't. Really simple. It's all associated with your Google account. So if you have like your, maybe a real estate email that you use, you could always use that for your YouTube page login. But it's a really straightforward process. Go to YouTube. If you already have a login. You're going to go ahead and hit this create button, and then it's just going to prompt you to create a channel. It takes a couple seconds. It's really easy. So once you've gone through those steps, you have a YouTube channel. We're going to go ahead and click create and upload video. From there, an upload prompt will appear. And then from there, you have two options. You can either drag and drop, or you can hit select files and go into the directory and find the thing that you're looking to upload. So there we go, MP4 file. That is my podcast. I'm going to go ahead and hit open. It's going to do its thing and think for a minute here. And here we are. So this is like your uploading dashboard. They call it the YouTube Studio. And this is where you're going to essentially add all elements of the podcast, from the thumbnail to the title to the description to any links that you want to kind of drop into the description as well to promote anything, whether it's your guest or yourself. That's where you'd all do it here. So title, I'm just going to say podcast test for today's sake. Description, a test I created for a webinar I'm hosting about podcasts. Now, obviously, that's just like a quick little one to put in there for you guys just to see, but you'd obviously want to go with in a little more detail. Fun fact, you can leverage ChatGPT for literally everything I'm doing right now. When it comes to the title, the description, any SEO or meta tags that you need to help the platforms promote it more, literally all of it can be done using ChatGPT. All you got to do is a couple options. You can either A, come back, sorry to derail for a second, guys, but you can either A, come back to text. You can hit over here. Of course, it wants to be buggy. I'm just going to say create new caption track. Sorry, this thing is now, of course, when I want to show you what I want to show you, it decides to have a moment. That's not a big deal. I'll skip it for now, but you'd essentially come over to text, hit transcribe, and then export a text file of that transcription of the video. And then from there, you would just pop that into ChatGPT and then say, hey, ChatGPT, I'm uploading a podcast today. I need your help with some of the copywriting for the podcast. Based on the transcript that I just showed you, could you please write me a YouTube title, description, and meta tags as well, based on a high-level keyword that is relevant to the topic that you're doing. From there, it's going to spit out everything that you need. And I've actually done some back-end testing on that in terms of like using some of these like YouTube SEO tools like TubeBuddy or Video IQ. And usually ChatGPT is able to get me a score anywhere from 80 out of 100 to 100 out of 100 on the SEO side. So I've done that stuff manually in the past and I've gotten the same scores. So why not leverage the robots and let them do some of the heavy lifting so you can get back to what you need to do, which is selling real estate. So we'll go back over really quickly to YouTube. There we go. And so yeah, we've gone through those steps. You have ChatGPT. ChatGPT's on this thing. You got your title, your description. You're gonna pop that in there. Your thumbnail. Don't risk letting YouTube pick your thumbnail because, as you can see, these aren't the most flattering thumbnails. You'd probably want to go over and use a free tool called Canva. Let me just show you guys what that looks like as well. Canva is a really simple free tool to use. There's also a paid version where you get a little extra out of it. But like I can literally just say podcast thumbnail. It's going to give me a bunch of templates that are going to pop up. Sorry, 1 second here. Oh my goodness. Whatever. Maybe later. Okay, let's try that again. Podcast thumbnail. And all right, so you see a whole bunch of templates come up. And then from there, you could click into it, add your images, add your title, add your podcast, add all that kind of stuff in, and you're good to go. Again, let Canva do a lot of the heavy lifting. If you're comfortable with graphic design and that kind of stuff, obviously go crazy and make some cool stuff. But if that's something you're good at or have any experience with, don't waste time on trying to do it. Like leverage the tools at hand. So Canva is going to be a great one for your thumbnail. So you made your thumbnail in Canva. You just go upload. And then in this case, you'd have to verify your phone number, but that's not a big deal. We'll just skip it for now. Playlist, you'd probably want to create a podcast playlist so that once you have a couple podcasts going, you can actually send your clients there as a great way to kind of get introduced to you or introduced to a topic that they're curious about. So we'll go into that a little bit later too. So once you have your podcast, playlist set up, you're good to go. You're going to come down here. Is this video made for kids? This is a weird thing that people get really confused about a lot of the time. Swearing. Swearing and whatever. But at the end of the day, unless you actually made a video for kids, it's not made for kids. Because what happens is on the back end, if you say it's made for kids, YouTube actually doesn't push it the same way that they push regular videos. And there's a lot more rules on the monetization, and it gets complicated. So actually saying yes, it's made for kids can actually hurt you a little bit in terms of how YouTube will distribute it. So every single video you make is not made for kids. It's obviously like it's not inappropriate, but it's just not made for kids. So just as a quick little side tip for that. We're gonna go down to show more. And then from there, if you have any paid promotion in your videos, you can go down that route, but most of you probably won't. And then you're good to go. Allow all this automatic stuff to happen, because when it does, it kind of boosts you a little bit on the YouTube algorithm side of things. And then tags. Tags are super important. This is where Google and YouTube can figure out what your video is about and then push that to the people that it thinks are going to watch it. So, if you have a mortgage broker on, you can add in, Canadian mortgage rates or, relative tags around that subject. And that's pretty much it in terms of this side of things. So you're just going to go next, video elements. You can add subtitles if you want. An end screen is just like at the end of the video. You see some of those suggestions pop up. That's all that is. So if you don't really have a YouTube channel established and this is your first video, don't worry about adding an end screen. But once you kind of establish yourself with a few videos on YouTube, then you can start playing around with the end screen a little bit more. And then cards. Cards are kind of a way to, maybe you're in a podcast and you reference another podcast episode that you've done. You can add a card that pops up in the top corner of the video. And then from there, that person watching the video, and you say, oh, back in episode 2 when we were talking about this, that'll pop up and they can actually go watch that episode as well. So it kind of gives you a little more circular retention in that sense when it comes to your YouTube videos and your channel as well. Visibility, you obviously want to make it public, because if it's not public, no one's going to see your video. Pretty simple there. And schedule, well, like just say, for example, your podcast is ready on a Monday and you release on a Wednesday and you just want to get it out. Well, put it up on YouTube on Monday. It's fine. Then just schedule out whatever time you want that to release. And you're good to go. So once you're ready, you'd hit publish. I'm not going to publish this video for the sake of I don't need to. But you know what? I will, just to show you what it looks like. So I'm going to hit publish. You have a bunch of sharing options here. Pretty straightforward. Going to continue. And then, your video's here. So you have options to download it if you need to, get shareable links, edit your title and description if something's changed, and essentially just your hub where all your videos are going to sit. So that's kind of the beginning and end of how to upload a video to YouTube. It's really not that complicated. A couple drags, couple clicks, couple keyboard types, and you're on your way. It usually takes maybe 5 to 10 minutes depending on size of your video and things like that. Libsyn. So Libsyn, this is where it gets a little more interesting. Libsyn is how you actually distribute your podcast to Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Podcast, or the many, many platforms that people listen to podcasts on. And it seems like a complicated thing because you're going to hear terms like RSS thrown around and feeds and different things. But it's really not that complicated when you use these kind of programs. It does a lot of the heavy lifting for you in terms of actually setting up that podcast distribution. So all you'd want to do is go to destinations and then just connect your Libsyn account to Spotify, and that's it. So you can see we have all these ones here: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Odyssey. Those are the top platforms right now for podcasting, and so it automatically hooks up to those and distributes it. So really straightforward.
Add audio?
Yeah, I'm just going to. And then that's the dashboard as well. You can look at all your episodes, everything you've done, your settings, and that kind of stuff. And this is where you'd set up like your Spotify thumbnail as well. You have two options. You can upload a Spotify thumbnail through like your page here, or you can go over and do it through as you're uploading. I'm going to say do it through as you're uploading just so it's a little easier. So let's go back to the dashboard just so this is what the homepage looks like. So when you log in, you can see all your past episodes that you've published and that kind of stuff there. So what we're going to do is we're going to hit new. It's like all the other uploads, hit upload audio. And again, you got two options. You can either drag your file onto this green box, or you can just click add media file. And then we're going to find our MP3 file here. And then we're going to go ahead and hit upload. It's going to begin the process. Usually takes a couple seconds for that to happen. And then basically what you need to do is just copy and paste what you've put on your YouTube channel into Libsyn. Now Libsyn doesn't use SEO tags the same way that YouTube and Google does, because YouTube and Google are actually search engines. Like YouTube is a search engine more than it is a social media platform. So it really leverages the tags, whereas Libsyn's a little bit different. Like, Spotify and Apple Music, they don't really leverage tags the same way. So you can put them in, but it's not the end of the world if you don't. So you put your episode title in, test episode. We're gonna go into the description, and again, same thing, copy and paste whatever you had on YouTube into there. This is where you'd add your episode artwork, so you can just add your little thumbnail. And then this is the same thing, you can either schedule it or immediately publish when it's ready. And then once you hit publish, whether you scheduled it or you are going live right now, it'll launch it when that appropriate time comes. So really straightforward. It's not complicated at all in terms of that. It might feel like it in the beginning, but it's a really simple and straightforward process. So that's what it kind of looks like, from shooting the podcast, uploading it into your computer, editing it in Premiere Pro, and then uploading it to YouTube and Libsyn. So you're probably wondering now at this point in the conversation, why are you shooting a podcast as a real estate agent or as a salesperson? And it really comes down to, I think, authority, like building authority amongst yourself and your peers, and as well accountability. People can see what you're doing, and you can kind of practice what you preach there in that sense. And it's also going to be a great way for you to have people know who you are before you go into that initial conversation. So this way you're actually going to be saving time in your business.
Exit full screen. Share screen.
Perfect. So anyway, it's going to be a great way for you to, like I said, establish authority, have accountability, and then really just at the end of the day, save time in terms of growing your network. It's going to be a great way for you to, like I said, save time on those phone calls. So one of the interesting things about that is, you meet someone new for the first time, and maybe you have your initial phone call set up for, call it Tuesday. And you met them on Monday. Well, what you can actually do right after you meet them or have that initial conversation is send them a text message or an email to your YouTube channel and your social media channels. And they can actually get an idea of who you are before they even actually have that initial conversation. So this actually saves time in terms of the sorting and sorting side of things when it comes to like your networking. So that's one of the huge components to it as well. But another really, really, really big component is going to be the macro to micro thesis, which is taking a huge, 45-minute to 1 hour long conversation and then chopping that up into hundreds of pieces of social media content. If you're ever wondering how Jazz and Laura put out as much content as they do, this macro to micro concept is a huge component of what they do. So whatever, if it's a talk, if it's a podcast, they take that, they print it, or they take the transcription of it, go through, find valuable tidbits, whether it's 30 seconds to a minute of information, and then clip that for Instagram Reels, for YouTube Shorts, for TikTok, for LinkedIn, for Facebook. And then that way, you're happy because you have a podcast, but now you're also happy because you have a month's worth of content without actually having to shoot anything additional, which is going to save you a ton of time, a ton of frustration, and just make your whole social media experience more efficient and more fun. So one thing we hear a lot of the time is, I don't know what to talk about, I don't know what to shoot when it comes to the social media content. Well, this really takes it out of your hands, because at the end of the day, you're having these 45-minute conversations with industry experts, getting amazing insights. So it's just like a no-brainer to take that and kind of run with it on social media. So that's going to be a huge, huge, huge thing for you. Yeah, it's a no-brainer. So that's kind of what that looks like in terms of the podcasting, the editing, the headspace kind of around why the hell you're doing it, like as a realtor or as a salesperson, because it might feel a little redundant from your perspective as you're entering, but I guarantee that once you get started, you'll see the value that I mentioned. So yeah, that's pretty much everything. Is there any?
Call to action.
Oh, right, an important call to action. This is going to be great. So I kind of just threw up like a ton of information on you guys in terms of all this gear, all these editing softwares, Libsyn, Canva, blah, 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 blah. It might seem like a lot right now, and that's okay, because I'm here to help. So what we've done is we've actually set up a Calendly where you guys can go, ftguacademy.com/podcasting. I have a Calendly set up. You can set up a 15-minute brainstorming session with me where I can actually help you come up with a name, talk about what you need in terms of gear, talk about what options you have in terms of locations for you to shoot, like actually get the ball rolling for the podcast. Because I think that's where a lot of people get stuck, is in the paralysis by analysis situation. And I definitely will be able to help you get out of that paralysis stage. So like I said, ftguacademy.com/podcasting. Go ahead and book me in for a quick call, and I'd be super happy to kind of go through this stuff. I actually love talking about podcast cameras and stuff like that. I'm a huge nerd. So you guys are making my day better by allowing me to rant about this stuff. So yeah, let's get those signups, and I'd be really, really excited to talk to you guys.
Question for you.
Yeah, we got a question.
What is the best way to start an online podcast? Not in person, best software to use to recording the podcast online.
So you kind of like the Zoom, like what we're doing, a Zoom style. Yeah, so one of the best ones, and we actually use this, is called StreamYard. I don't know if you want to put that in the chat for them. So StreamYard is basically Zoom on steroids. So one thing with Zoom, some of the quality can be bad once you've actually tried to export it out of Zoom. And one of the most frustrating things people kind of run into is trying to recycle that footage from Zoom, because it's atrocious sometimes how bad the quality gets. So StreamYard's a great software. It allows you to shoot in full 1080p online, so that when you go to pull the clips later, the quality's there still, so people can actually enjoy it on social media. And then yeah, StreamYard's the best. I really don't have another option. That's my ultimate favorite. And you can start adding in, like, you know how we have our borders and our call to actions that come up. You can start adding some of that stuff in there as well, just to kind of make it a little more fun. And then even there, I think StreamYard launched like a beta aspect to their software where you can actually get clips through StreamYard. It's not through and through yet, like it's definitely not perfect, and you might not get the clips that you want in terms of how they look, but it's starting that process. So that's another benefit of that give it a year or two, you might be able to just fully shoot your podcast in there and then edit it, or not edit it necessarily, but at least clip it from there as well. So yeah, StreamYard, that's the one.
Another question for you. Hey Nick, what are your thoughts on Odyssey?
Odyssey as a platform for podcasting? I actually don't have a lot of experience with Odyssey as a platform. Like I said, I normally stick with I consume my podcast on Spotify personally, so I really don't have much on Odyssey. It does seem to be one of the more growing platforms to be on, but the way I see it is, don't even really look at it from like a channel to channel perspective when it comes to podcasts. Let the distribution software bring it to as many platforms as possible. You don't really want to be pigeonholed with one or the other, like, oh, exclusively on Apple or exclusively on podcasts, because you're just adding layers of complexity for people. So I would say, yeah, Odyssey is great, but put your podcast on everything.
Is it Odyssey for editing?
Oh, for editing. Yeah, I personally don't have any experience for podcast editing on Odyssey. Like I said, what I use is what I showed you guys today, which is Premiere Pro. Which gives you the most control out of editing. So yeah, I can't really comment on Odyssey, but I definitely can do some research on it and get back to you.
What do you use for transcripting videos?
So there's two options for transcripting videos. There is a paid version, which is Trint, and you essentially just take your audio file, upload it to Trint, the website, let it do its thing for about an hour, and it will pump out a Word doc that you can download and then read through. But it's not free. You have to pay for that. And it's like a scaling pay thing where it depends on how many transcripts you're doing and the amount of minutes that you're transcribing and things like that. So it gets a little more complicated and a little more pricey. But Premiere Pro does it for you. So in that text panel that I was showing you guys earlier, while you're editing that, you can actually just take the transcription tool, tell it to transcribe the video, and then just export a text file. So you're already paying for Premiere Pro, so I would actually probably suggest that is the route to go first. Now Trint's kind of nice because it gives you a little bit more of a better layout and organization for your files. You don't have to think about that as much. Whereas Premiere Pro, you just have to take an extra second or two just to think about where you're exporting your text files and organizing them. So that's kind of my perspective on it.
Okay, call to action, close up.
Yeah, so yeah, that's everything, guys. Make sure to follow me, Nick Bissett, on Instagram, on TikTok as well. And you can shoot me DMs. I'm always happy to answer your questions. But most importantly, go to ftguacademy.com/podcasting. Set up a Calendly with me, and I'd be super excited to get you started on that podcasting journey. Done.
There you go, Nikki. There you fucking go. Good shit.
I blacked out. How was it?